The defense calls this a perversion of science, crime labs turned crime factories, accusations that politics are trumping forensic science by escalating misdemeanor marijuana charges into felonies without proof. And it's torn one West Michigan family to pieces. A 6-year-old son taken away from his parents 14 months ago, in part because of a disputed felony. You decide what this lab report proves. Since September of last year, Max Lorenz has been cheated of these carefree moments with his son Dante. Afternoons of uninterrupted fun, now supervised visits.
Doctor's telling me one thing, the judge is saying another.
For years, Max has been ingesting marijuana oils for serious stomach issues and pain after a debilitating back injury. But during an unrelated emergency, a cop walked into his home finding a smudge of butane hash oil. His medicine got him in trouble, and he was charged with a misdemeanor for having marijuana. But he has a medical marijuana card and says the charges should have been dropped. The Ottawa County prosecutor charged Max for having a Schedule I synthetic drug. That's no longer a misdemeanor, it's a 2-year felony, something his attorney Michael Camoran calls a bogus crime.
When you have a laboratory that is looking at a substance and reporting it in a way that makes it a Schedule I instead of the marijuana that they know it is, it's creating a crime.
What Max had is a marijuana extract. But look at Max's MSP crime lab report. It specifically says origin unknown.
In this particular case, a quantitation was not done, and therefore I could not conclude whether or not it was hemp. You're correct.
This is the forensic scientist who wrote the report, testifying last spring he couldn't determine if this hash oil was natural or man-made. Again, the difference between a misdemeanor and a 2-year felony.
Yes, it's a preparation of marijuana. It was extracted from marijuana.
But Jay Siegel disagrees. He's a chemist and former MSU forensic science director. He says this is natural marijuana. He pointed to the lab's data, showing the sample had a brown color and 3 cannabinoids. He says it's unreasonable to say this is man-made.
It's much easier to get marijuana and extract it than the syntheses are quite sophisticated.
Then why are state police forensic scientists writing origin unknown on reports like this?
The substance that we're talking about has always known and been reported from the lab as being marijuana. They know it. The lab is being forced, compelled, a policy change to do this a certain way, to report this as a synthetic THC. This is a lie.
Camoran obtained months of emails since 2013 through the Freedom of Information Act. They show a debate about procedural changes between MSP forensic scientists, directors, and prosecutors associated with the Attorney General's office.
The law enforcement community is focused on criminalizing medical marijuana patients, creating crimes in a crime laboratory that gives them no integrity.
Emails show after meeting with the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan, a lab leader turned one prosecutor's opinion into policy. Ken Stecker, a prosecutor with the Attorney General's office, writes here, "That is my opinion. THC is a Schedule I drug regardless of where it comes from. But according to law, where the THC comes from does make a difference."
The most damning evidence is that their own forensic scientists calls them out that they can't do it based on forensic science, and yet they do it anyways.
One state police forensic scientist expresses concern, quote, "By going out on that limb and calling it THC, you jump from a misdemeanor to a felony." Then he writes, "It's highly doubtful any of these medical marijuana products we're testing are synthetic. That's completely impractical." Another is absolutely opposed. This could lead to the wrong charge of possession of synthetic THC and the ultimate wrongful conviction of an individual. For the lab to continue this possible miscarriage of justice would be a huge black eye for the division and the department.
You don't just call up the Attorney General's office and ask them what they think, because they're not scientists.
John Collins served as the director of MSP Forensic Science from 2010 until he says he surprised the department with his resignation in 2012, in part because of these issues.
In my experience, it was just a non-stop political game.
Michigan State Police Public Affairs and the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan responded to Fox 17 deferring to each other. State Police Public Affairs said it's up to the prosecutors to charge crimes, and lab policy was changed to add the statement origin unknown when it's not possible to determine if THC comes from marijuana or is synthetic. Then the prosecutor's president wrote, it's up to the crime labs to report science. Quote, any accusation that the lab and Pam are directing lab personnel to report crimes without evidence is untrue. Comorn doesn't buy it.
There is some wrongdoing going on that they know that it's wrong and they continue to do it otherwise.
Meanwhile, Max says he will not stop fighting for custody and the right to use the medicine, he says, that doesn't hurt his body like pharmaceuticals.
If nobody stands up for this and it just keeps going the way it is, how many more people are going to get thrown under the bus just for using their prescribed medicine? It's just ridiculous.
I just caught up with Attorney General Bill Schuette at another event asking specifically about these emails suggesting prosecutors within his office are manipulating the way crime labs report marijuana. Here's what he had to say after I asked him what is his involvement.
We're in the middle of an investigation, so really can't comment one way or the other. But we have an outstanding group of people who work very hard to make sure we enforce the law and defend the Constitution of Michigan.
Schuette there saying he enforces the law, also adding his office is always, quote, very open, very transparent. As for Lorenza's case, a scheduled hearing has been adjourned. The Ottawa County prosecutor filed a motion suppressing the defense subpoenas for many of the people I just quoted. Now, the defense tells me they plan to refile motions and set another hearing likely in December. At this point, it may be up to another court to address these underlying allegations outside of Max's case. Meanwhile, there is pending marijuana legislation statewide that would expand the definition of usable marijuana to include concentrates and extracts. This would explicitly protect people like Max from being charged. We will stay on top of this case for you and continue to investigate. In the studio, Dana Chiklis, Fox 17 News.